Hey guys, welcome to the Critical Review. Today I'm going to be talking about the newly released HBO Max series Lanterns. This is going to be my first impression of episode 1, so let's get into it. Now Lanterns is a DC property, so that can be a little bit confusing going into it, what the tone is going to be like. We've had very dark content from DC and we've had very lighthearted content. I will say the lighthearted content, I don't think it's landed as well. So that was kind of my concern going into this because I kind of saw how cheeky Hal Jordan was in the trailer. Speaking of Hal Jordan, I'm going to say this right off the bat, he is absolutely the standout in this. There's a lot of layers to this character, and Kyle Chandler does a great job showing you those layers throughout this episode. Now, pretty much this episode establishes Hal Jordan and John Stewart's dynamic as Hal Jordan is training him. I will say John Stewart seems way more uptight and official, almost militarized, much more than Hal Jordan. Hal Jordan is kind of lighthearted in a lot of the ways that he does things, but he doesn't really let you know too much. He doesn't really let you know what's going on or what he's thinking, and I think that causes John Stewart to pretty much constantly question everything that Hal does. Now, John Stewart does say, I respect Hal in this. However, I think that they are so different that it causes a lot of friction between them. And that friction makes for a really fun dynamic to see how Hal Jordan is almost like kind of going at things in one direction and John Stewart's just kind of like shrugging his shoulders, basically not believing Hal or his theories. Another dynamic to this is you'll see kind of a lack of respect towards Hal by a lot of people surrounding him. And it's really shocking considering that he's been the Green Lantern this long and people don't take him more seriously or find him more credible. Throughout the episode, you see time and time again that Hal proves them wrong. Hal Jordan is a lot smarter than people give him credit for. Now, him being smart is really, really good considering that this is basically kind of starting out like a murder mystery in a way. Now, it's a much larger scale murder mystery considering there's extraterrestrials, but nonetheless, that's really what this is. You do get some backstory on John Stewart in this, which I find interesting, really helped his character development. As far as backstory with Hal Jordan, though, you don't get a whole lot except for his brief moments of basically qualifying himself to handle situations, just mentioning small bits about himself, just like him saying to John Stewart, I've been doing this since you were a baby, really showing you how long that Hal has been at this. Another person that discredits Hal and doesn't really take him seriously is Carrie Kane, played by Kelly Macdonald. Now, Macdonald does a really good job in her portrayal of Kane because this is a sheriff, her character, amongst superheroes. So that would be a pretty difficult dynamic to be taken seriously whenever you're against people that literally battle aliens. Nonetheless, Kane's character is portrayed as a thick-skinned law enforcement officer that's no nonsense. Now we're going to start to step into spoiler territory here, so if you haven't seen the first episode, you might want to go watch it for yourself before continuing, unless you don't care. Essentially, the entire episode, they're doubting Hal's theory that the actor in this shooting is an extraterrestrial. They're basically just saying, like, there's no way, even though he's basically dispelling their theories verbally to them. You know, he's had this job for 5 years. Well, you know, they pride themselves on blending into society. And there are 14 different races of aliens that easily live among humans. And they still doubt him. Now, eventually, Hal pretty much shows them what's up. He shows them that this guy is an extraterrestrial and pretty much saves everybody and the whole town. Do you think he gets more respect after that? Not really, which still, to me, is baffling. That may sound like a gripe, and it's really not. It just kind of makes me wonder where their heads are at. However, it makes you root for Hal, and it actually makes you like Hal Jordan's character even more. There are even parts where Hal indirectly confronts people. He kind of gets himself arrested to get into the jail cell with this extraterrestrial because the sheriff isn't letting him interview him. So he figures, I'm just going to bypass her, go to jail, question this guy one-on-one. And she basically denies him that ability because she locks him in a separate room, basically a broom closet. Now, in that moment where he gets arrested, creating a bar fight, you see that lighthearted side of Hal's like out-of-the-box thinking and like non-conventional way of doing things. Eventually, he actually sees a judge and she sets a bond for him. Now, somebody he doesn't know bails him out, requests that he comes to some ranch, and then he obliges. But not because he feels like he owes them something, but because he wants to get to the bottom of it. Why did somebody bail me out of jail who doesn't even know me? At this point, you can see how Hal indirectly confronts people. how he calls things for what it is. He doesn't just say things to save face. The guy who bailed him out of jail will make a point, and Hal will counter it with a point and a question. As in, usually whenever people bail somebody out, there's strings attached. Or people that own a large ranch and then have other people run them for them are usually criminally attached. You don't really figure out who exactly bails Hal out of jail, but it adds another layer to the mystery. And that is what this feels like. This feels like a mystery. I do have one criticism, and it's a very hesitant criticism because I don't know where they're going with this. What they did here can either be a really good decision or just a really, really terrible decision. The majority of this first episode takes place in 2016, about 10 years ago. Fast forward to 2026, they literally show an older Jon Stewart with a goatee meeting up with Kane, walking to the football field where a portion of this episode takes place, and Hal Jordan is dead on the bleachers. Now, you just built this character up, you made me get attached and care about him, and this is only episode 1. I was really digging Hal's character. But then you show me that he's dead. Now, this is going to do a couple things to the viewer. One, whenever Hal's in life or death situations, from now until then, I understand you can have a ton of episodes within that 10-year period, but every time that he's in a life or death situation, you pretty much know he's going to make it out of it because he doesn't die until 2026. The other thing is, you start to get attached to Hal, but you're almost cautious because you know you're going to lose him, and you know how it ends. Now, this is a DC comic book inspired series, so is there a way that Hal comes back? Is he not dead? I mean, we're talking about the Green Lantern, so if that's in the realm of possibilities, resurrections or the lack of permanent death is also in the equation. However, we don't know yet, so I don't know how to feel about that. I don't think that that's something I personally would have done. I know I'm not a writer, but just for those reasons I just listed, I thought that was kind of an interesting direction to go, and I'm really curious to see like how it pans out. So they do have my attention, and they do have me wanting more. However, I am going into a little hesitant because right now Hal is my favorite character, and I already know he dies. Episode 2 launches on Sunday, so if you haven't seen the first one, I'd probably get on it, and I would definitely continue watching the series. I'd give this one a watch, guys. I think it's really well written, it's well paced, and I'm having fun with it. What did you guys think about the first episode of The Green Lantern? And what do you guys think about Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart's dynamic? Drop it in the comments below. And if you got a second, please tap that like button. It really helps me out, and I like to keep making these videos. Alright guys, and until next time, this has been The Critical Review.